Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another of these very cool Bandai Megahouse puzzle figures. The last time we had one of these, and in fact the only time we had one of these on the channel in the past, was when we had taken a look at their Spinosaurus. We are now going to check out their Mosasaurus, which I felt like would be a pretty fun one to take a look at. When I had, purchased the Spino, I didn't know if I was really going to purchase any more of these because they're like 20 bucks, and considering they're fairly small and stuff, I felt like it was a little pricey for something like this. But when I actually got the Spinosaurus in hand, I absolutely adored that figure. I love that figure, and still it's probably one of the most fun Spinos that I've acquired in quite some time. So I figured I would go ahead and give the Mosasaurus a shot. Even though I don't think the Mosasaurus looks as nice as the Spino did, I think it looks cool enough, I guess, for us to check out here on the channel. You can see the packaging looks pretty cool. We've got a shot, for the most part, seems to be focusing on the skeleton side of the Mosasaurus, but if you continue to look through the course of the packaging again, there we go, there's a shot of the head of the Mosasaurus from the actual living side, I guess you could say, and you can see it doesn't look absolutely incredible, but it looks pretty fun. And then here on the back, we basically can see all the different pieces that are included that we will have to put together, which is shockingly, at least as far as the Spino anyway, it was very easy to do. So let's go ahead, pop the top open. Oh, it's taped, I gotta cut that. There we go, we've got the tape cut, and then we'll pull the contents that are in there out. There's a little bit more hiding in there. I think that's everything. And as you can see, we've got some pretty fun stuff in here. We have what appears to be a little bit of a meal for our Mosasaurus, but also the parts to the Mosasaurus, which looks like maybe it'll actually be a little bit bigger than I was expecting it to be. We also have all of the internal organs in here, and then of course the bones for the Mosasaurus, which, it's one of those instances where when you first look at everything, it might be like, wow, that's a good bit that I have to kind of assemble and put together, but at least as far as the Spino goes, it just flew by. It was super quick and super easy to assemble. There's also a booklet here that I have to open up. It's in some packaging here, like some plastic packaging. I think it's a booklet anyway. You can see again, you can also see that also more puzzles are on the way, which is actually exciting. I know there is a T-Rex one coming, but when you open it up, you can see all sorts of very cool images. I think maybe, yes, I should say one of these sides should have English on it, and you can also learn about the species as well, which is really cool. And I think it's always fun when people include these, when companies include these with their releases. I think it's always a great thing to help teach people about whatever species of figure or model they are including in their collection. So I'm going to go ahead, get this all assembled, and we'll check it out from there. So there we go, our Mosasaurus is now put together and looking pretty cool, and as you can see, there is a little base down there underneath the Mosasaurus, and it's basically what you put the Mosasaurus on to balance it out, but it's like very thin, so it doesn't stay on there super easily. So I guess this little base is slightly questionable, but the Mosasaurus itself does look pretty fun. And of course, once you turn it around, you can see the inside here of the Mosasaurus. You've got all of the internal organs, although they're not really all that nicely sculpted. They're very, very generic, but they look cool enough, I guess, as well as, of course, the skeletal structure for our Mosasaurus. So, as always, let's jump to a closer look at this and check it out from there. So starting here on the side with the skeletal structure of our Mosasaurus, you can straight away see the skull and how cool it looks. You can also see that we've got the tongue in here, as well as the brain kind of hiding back there. But as you actually turn here, you look at the inside of the mouth, you can see the teeth of the Mosasaurus on the more alive side look pretty good. They're painted. The one piece here doesn't stay in, like it keeps falling out for some reason. I cannot get that part to stay in, but if you look inside the mouth, you can see we do have the extra row of teeth, of course, on both sides. And again, what the tongue and everything looks like down there looks very nice. As you move back here a little bit further into the body, of course, you can see the vertebrae, the ribs, the shoulder, all of that fun stuff as you move along, as well as the bones down here in the flipper of our Mosasaurus. And then as you continue to move along, you can see the, again, internal organs in there. But as you can see, there isn't really any actual detail to them. They're basically just smoothed out and everything, and there's just not much to be found, but at least it does kind of recreate that look, which is kind of cool. And as you continue to move along, you again still see the vertebrae and everything moving along. You've got the rear flipper here as well, and then you lead out into the tail of our Mosasaurus. Then, first of all, if you actually move along the underside, you can see all of the pieces that kind of like snap together. Not really snap, but like you just kind of apply them together, and you can see how cool that looks as you move through, and you can see that the actual texturing looks really nice. The scale detail actually looks quite phenomenal. But then as you move the Mosasaurus around, you turn it around to the other side, you can now get a look at the Mosasaurus, and I think it looks pretty nice except for the eyes. The eyes are the worst part of this figure because they look so huge, almost like the Mosasaurus was in a cartoon and was just electrocuted, and looks just like absolutely insane with how gigantic the eyes are. The eyes are painted with a white, then given a black, and there's also a white spot to give it that eye shine sort of a look. But I'm not a big fan of the eyes. You can see, though, that the scale detail does look really, really nice. Very highly detailed, very vibrant, actually, on the sculpt itself. You've got a fairly smooth transition from the darker blue of the primary body color to the lighter tone, this like white for the underside of the Mosasaurus. Maybe not perfect, but it looks okay, I guess, for what it is. You can see the pink there on the inside of the mouth of the Mosasaurus, with it being stretched with the Mosasaurus having its mouth open. Again, you can see the flipper, which also looks really nice. And as you move through, again, you can see how the pieces all just kind of like sit together. I will say I don't think it looks quite as nice or quite as impressive as the Spinosaurus did, but it's still pretty fun for what it is. Again, overall, it looks fairly highly detailed, fairly decent, and follows the same similar trend as the Spino. And you can see, again, the scale detail does look really good out here on the tail fin of our Mosasaurus. So definitely really cool, but not as nice as the Spino. And then we have that little base down here, which you can see there is an ammonite present on, and you've got like a rock formation there behind it, as well as, again, the ammonite itself, which the shell looks pretty nice, and you've got a nice light tone there for the shell, and then you've got an orange with an eye painted out, and then you can see the eye is a white and a black pupil as well, just like we saw on the Mosasaurus itself. The only difference is we don't have that white spot to give it the eye shine. And then when you turn it around, you can basically see like the fossilized version of the ammonite over here as well, which is a pretty fun little extra addition to this set. Now, as far as the size goes for our Mosasaurus, it is not huge by any means, but lengthwise about 9 inches or 23 centimeters. And then for a height, if it's laying here on the table, you are looking at a little over 1.5 inches, closing in on 1 3/4 inches, but not quite, or around the 4 centimeter mark, maybe even a little bit over that. And if we actually took the ammonite here, we brought the ammonite part in here, and then we put our Mosasaurus on top, height-wise now, I'd say about 2 1/4 inches or a little under 6 centimeters. And if you go to the top of the tail fin, a little over 2 1/4 inches or pretty much 6 centimeters on the dot. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human being next to our Megahouse Bandai Mosasaurus, and you can see it's pretty small. Overall, I honestly don't have very many Mosasaurus in my collection that are as small as this one is, because again, when it comes to these type of figures, it seems they're always a very similar size. Also, if you look back to the Planosaurus version of the Mosasaurus, I would say was also fairly similar in size to this. I always feel like these figures and the Planosaurus figures are very similar when it comes to like their overall gimmick, but obviously these figures lack articulation and stuff, and also have a little bit of a higher quality, I would say. But for another size comparison, there is the Bandai Megahouse Spinosaurus next to the Bandai Megahouse Mosasaurus. And if you do happen to have that Spinosaurus already in your collection, this should help to give you a pretty good idea of the size and how they're pretty similar in size overall. And since I don't really have anything that's going to compare well with this, we also have the Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to the Mosasaurus to continue to give you an idea of the size. And we're also just going to bring in a few of the randoms that I often use, one of which is the Schleich Diabloceratops, as well as the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, again just to continue to give you an idea here of the size. And of course, the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon. Hopefully you have one of these figures, because if I were to break out some other Mosasaurus, they're all going to dwarf this one drastically, because again, Mosasaurus usually gets a fairly impressive size, and this one is absolutely on the smaller side. So this Bandai Megahouse Mosasaurus puzzle is pretty cool. Again, it's a fun figure, but it's definitely not as nice as the Spinosaurus. I think the overall appearance of it just looks off, especially in the eye, and that might be part of the gimmick of these type of figures. I don't really know because I'm not too familiar with them, but it's again just not as nice as you'll see elsewhere when it comes to Mosasaurus figures. That said, the more appealing factor of this isn't meant to give it that really beautiful high quality Mosasaurus look. It's the fact that you can look at it on one side and see the full living version of the Mosasaurus, then turn it around and look at the other side and see the skeletal reconstruction with the internal organs inside. Even if the internal organs aren't really all that great, they're not highly detailed, and they all look the same, they're all basically just a reddish tone, it is still a pretty cool sort of like an anatomy style version of a Mosasaurus. So I do like them, even if they look a little goofy, or at least this one here does, especially in the eye area. It still is really cool, and in this instance I would say the more superior display would be the side with the skeleton and everything, because I think it just looks so cool on that side, and everything for the most part is nicely sculpted. The skeleton and everything is also nicely sculpted. The only thing that's not nicely sculpted would be the internal organs themselves. But the addition of the really cool little base with an ammonite down there is always fun as well, and I like the fact that they gave us the living version of the ammonite as well as the fossilized version on the other side. Again, pretty cool figure. Definitely looking forward to getting a hold of a few more of these to see if any of the other ones are as nice as the Spinosaurus, but definitely looking forward to the Tyrannosaurus at the very least. I do have that one pre-ordered, so once that arrives I will of course review it. But if you are interested in the meantime in picking up this Mosasaurus, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased it on Big Bad Toy Store. So make sure you check the link in the description, grab this if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.